following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, a whole bunch of other stuff, and I don't know. I guess we should just roll it.
Whoa, D, so slow down.
I can't. There's no time.
No time for what?
There's no time for anything, extra. We've got 2 big episodes to talk about, and we can't be wasting time on too much of, this stuff.
Well, come on now. Maybe we won't have a lot to discuss, and it'll be a short episode.
Are you serious? When have we ever had a shorter podcast?
Well, you do make a fair point there. Well, I guess, why are we standing around talking? Roll the damn opening credits.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this is podcast episode number 269. This week we're going to be discussing...
Down now.
He's such a... Oh, man. 10-year-old boy. And this week we'll be discussing 2 episodes of The Walking Dead. First up is episode 18 of season 11. The title of that episode is A New Deal, and then directly after that we'll be discussing episode 19, which is titled Variant. And if you haven't been through a double episode with us before, come along for the ride, everybody. We follow our same format where we'll do quick thoughts, episode description, and our points on the episode. And we'll keep them separate. We'll talk episode 18 first and do it as we normally do, and then we will do episode 19 as we normally would as well, so that they're not sort of mixed together in a big old goulash of episode 18 and 19. So let's jump in. Feet first for episode 18. Quick thoughts. What did you think of A New Deal?
Well, I kind of, first of all, I kind of came in and I watched both of them back to back, which,
yes, you did.
because I was out traveling, man, all over God's creation here, and so just basically got back into town on Sunday, to have to watch these 2 episodes and then watch them again and then make notes. So it's all very, very much in my mind. And the only thing I'm worried about is that I'm going to confuse stuff that happened in the next one in this one.
Well, I'll be here. I'm here. I'll help you through.
Let me just say that I like both episodes a lot. I thought they were good. I thought that they, 18, really was kind of a plot driving episode where it really was kind of setting a lot of stuff up.
Agreed.
But it made up, there was kind of a lack of action until the end, and then it was bloody awesome. Yes. Right. Yes. So yeah, I really liked it. I thought there was a lot of fun stuff in there with Daryl and Judith. It was nice to see her again. And, again, it was, like I said, it's like we kind of touched base with a lot of the characters, and we saw how the events of the previous episode is affecting them and what's going on. And it was great. So like I said, I thought overall there were a couple little things here that I was like, but for the most part, I was very happy with it. And definitely for me, Variant was the better of the 2. I thought that episode was really good. So, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, overall, New Deal, I liked a lot. How about you?
I liked it as well. I agree that it was a lot of plot-driven, plot-heavy. We did jump around a bit with a bunch of different, sort of checking in with a bunch of different characters. I feel like the main sort of thrust of the episode was these 2 parallel stories of 2 women, girls, or whatever, who were unhappy with their situation. You had Judith was unhappy with how things were panning out at the Commonwealth, and the deal meant they got to leave and yada yada, and she just wasn't happy that the way things were changing. and then you had Max, who was not happy with the deal either, but for completely separate reasons. So I think it's really interesting that and then the final climax, they both figured very highly in that climax for two totally different reasons. But it was interesting to see those two stories sort of run parallel, and of course there was a bunch of other stuff going on as well. But those two sort of main sort of through lines there, with a lot of other details thrown in, and I'm right there with you. I really, really liked this episode. It sort of was a ramp up a little bit better than because we're in 18, so it's just after we only did the premiere so far.
Right.
We did Lockdown.
Yes.
And Lockdown was good. I thought Lockdown was really good, and I think this was better than that. And then I agreed with you. I like Variant more out of the two of them, but I feel like this was still a little bit better than 17. So it's like we're getting there. We're ramping up little by little by little to, the ending, which is, gives you a pit in the stomach to think about that it's all going to be over soon. But
I almost felt that 17 and 18, back in the before times, they could have done like a double mid-season premiere. And that those two could have been one story. And again, I like both of them, but I'm just saying they could have done that and it would have worked, I think.
Agreed. I agree. So this was really good. Same with you. There were a handful of moments that I was like, really? And we'll get to them. But overall, really, really good episode. And like I said, since there's improvement, I think, on the week before, and then the next one is an even bigger improvement on this episode that we're going to be talking about, I feel like it's all sort of headed in the right direction, basically, which, I mean, you've got to have faith that that's what would have happened anyway. I mean, they're pretty good at what they've been doing. That's why they've been doing it for 11 years. So, all right. So moving on, let's get started with our details about episode 18. Before we do that, let's remind ourselves what the plot of this particular episode was with the episode description, which is your cup of tea to deal with.
All right. Well, I first of all, again, I just want to starting out say that I have been traveling. I've been running around doing some family stuff down in Florida where there was a hurricane, and then I had this crazy show, zombie show at Evans City this past weekend, and I am a little derelict in my duty. I do not have a brought to you by this week. I know. Clutch your pearls.
They're clutched.
They're clutched, yeah. So I apologize. Next week, I think we're going to get back to a more regular routine here, and so we should definitely have one for next week. So anyway, with that being said, the episode in question is 11.18, and it is titled "A New Deal," and the description is: Carol makes a deal with Pamela to wipe the slate clean on behalf of her friends. Aaron, Jerry, Lydia, and Elijah get on the road to Oceanside to fill them in on a plan. The Commonwealth celebrates Founders Day. And that is your episode description.
Yeah, pretty sparse, but, gives you the gist of
everything. It kind of hits the highlights, right?
Yeah, highlights. Absolutely. Before we get into those details, let's do writer-director for the episode, and we can get into our points.
All right. Well, this episode actually it has two writers listed, and it's kind of funny because it says screenplay by, and it lists Corey Reed and I think Kevin Diebold, and then it says story by Corey Reed. And what that tells me from my experience, and knowledge and learning what little I do know about the film TV industry is that Corey Reed wrote the script by himself, and then Angela Kang wanted some changes made to it, and either Corey Reed was unavailable or didn't want to, and so they gave it to Kevin Diebold, and so he changed it, and so that's why they both get a writing credit on the screenplay, but the story, the overall general story, was done solely by Corey. That's usually what that means. Maybe not, you never know, but that's usually what happens. So, but anyway, and so I'm just going to focus on Corey Reed. We've talked about Kevin Diabolt before. He's been written a bunch of episodes. He's, I believe, an executive producer on the show, so he's someone that we should be a little familiar with. But and Corey Reed, by the way, has written 21 episodes of The Walking Dead.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Starting in like season 5, and he is a frequent writing partner with Angela Kang.
Okay.
And again, 21 episodes from episode 5 to the present. But in this season, in the final season of season 11, he has written 2 episodes. He's written this one, 11:18, A New Deal. And then he also wrote 11.9, which was entitled No Other Way. And that was the first mid-season premiere. And it's so you have the fallout of the Hwacha being fired in Meridian, and
yes,
and then you also have, if you remember, that's the one where Judith and Gracie are trapped in the slowly filling up with water cellar.
Yes, I do.
So yeah, that was that. He wrote that episode, so a pretty good one. I mean, there was a lot of excitement in that story. So. But yeah, so clearly a Walking Dead veteran in terms of our writer. And then our director is a guy named Jeffrey F. January. And, wow, is that a cool name, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
And he is also a veteran of The Walking Dead in terms of directing, in that he's directed 1 episode each in seasons 5, 6, 7, 8, and this season 11. So, 5 episodes total. And again, the only one for this season is this one, 11:18, A New Deal. So that is your writer and your director.
Love it. So they are employing the narrations. So I'm assuming this is going to be the device they're going to use for the whole 3rd trimester, for this final block of episodes, to sort of tie them together and have this little thing at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was one on 19 as well. So it is a through line there that will be something to follow. And of course, at some point, we get to the end, someone will stitch together the whole thing, and it'll be a complete speech from Judith.
Right.
And I'm dying to know when she makes this speech, when she says it. Is it like something she's writing in a book? Is it something she's saying out loud? Is it just a memory she has within herself? Are we just hearing her thoughts in her head? So I don't know. They're things that I ponder every time they put this little narration in there.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that it's Kaylee Fleming, so the voice is current Judith.
Right.
But again, as the comic book fans know, the Carl that's telling the story at the end is not, Carl eating the pudding Carl. I mean, he's old Carl.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what they do.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm digging the narration. This one,
Daryl.
The first one was all about like bad people. This one was all about Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because you see, they sprinkle in some stuff from Daryl's beginnings, from like from season 1, etc.
Mm-hmm.
With
a lot of Merle.
Yeah, there is, and it's funny because you really have to sort of remember what a defining figure Merle was for the character of Daryl in the first almost 3 seasons, because he was still there with the governor too. So Merle wasn't on the show for very long, and I would say Rooker wasn't in a ton of episodes when you compare it with how many a lot of other people have been in. But the character itself has such an effect on Daryl's, how he changed, how his mind changed, how he became closer to the guy he is today.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was cool. It was cool, and I appreciate that in these narrations they're doing lots of throwbacks, a lot of clips of scenes from first
season 1, season 2. Oh
yeah. I mean,
see how young these people look.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as they started doing the Daryl stuff, they had a little in between Judith doing this narration or Kaylee doing this narration, there's a little bit of dialogue, not a lot, but you can hear him do the you locked him up on the roof of the building, just left him there.
You left him handcuffed to the roof. What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and plus you get a shot. You get a shot of Daryl holding little ass kicker, right, Judith, when she's a baby. Yeah. You get the shot of Daryl holding the dead body of I'm totally blanking on her name, on Maggie's sister, Beth. On Beth.
Yeah, Beth. Yeah.
And so they do that, and if you note in the episode itself, Rick's name comes up and Sophia's name comes up, so all kinds of callbacks.
Yeah. I think it's great. Previous. I think it's great because it's some might, if you were a little more negative about it, you could think it was kind of fan servicey, but I think it's important. It's not so much for the fans, but I think it's important considering how many seasons this show has been on. Little callbacks like this are an important thing to sort of, place a little touchstone out there so that you remember, like, this is how far this group has come. This is where they started. This is where they are now, and all of those things in between that help them become who they are. So I'm really enjoying them. I think they're great.
I am too. And I think you're right that it can come across as kind of douchey, if not done right. Yeah. Like if you're doing it like the J.J. Abrams Star Wars way of like, hey, remember all that cool stuff from the old Star Wars movies? Here it is. That's just douchey, okay, and wrong. But if it makes sense in the context of the story, it's what people do. And I always find that annoying when I'm watching a long running show when you see characters in season 5 and it's like, man, you know what? This situation is really similar to something that happened to you in season 2, yet you have no memory of that. And so, and in this case, it's Daryl and Carol are having a talk about just after Judith has run away. And Daryl's like, I'm not a parent. I don't know what to do. And then he asks her, he's like, what do you think he would do? And she's like, don't bring up Rick because he's not here. And it's like, yes, that is a normal question for him to ask because it's Rick's kid.
Yep.
So, I didn't have a problem with it at all. And I like when shows reward the loyal fans with the little callbacks like that if you watch the show from the beginning, you get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah,
absolutely.
I would say like this is a really great episode, and I think there was they, like I said when I was talking about the things I liked and whatever, they did hit upon a couple of different groups of people, but they did sort of settle down into main sort of storylines. You've got the deal that Carol brokered is sort of going to fruition, and all the people are sort of deciding if they're going to go or stay. And there's, when they sort of touch on not everyone, but little groups here and there. Then there's also, the downfall of Hornsby, so that becomes like Hornsby becomes the patsy. And then there's the whole Sebastian, Max, Eugene sort of thing that happened there, which it has a bunch of different tendrils that sort of come out from there. But, in general, sort of that's like the bigger thing. But everything sort of kicks off with the brokering of this deal. And so we jump right into where we left off, which is where in the sewers they have been surrounded by Hornsby's group. And then they get the drop on them. Everybody's got all of their weapons out. And then Pamela shows up with Mercer and Carol. And Negan is there too, because he was in the Commonwealth and they all sort of came together. They talk about, and then they're going to start talking about what kind of deal they made. But what's great is I noticed, because there's still some tension with Carol and Daryl, and things aren't 100% with them, and they're still close and friends and all that other stuff and depending on each other, but there's still some issues there they've got to work through. But as soon as she shows up, And his first reaction, he growled at her. It was how I felt. And he says to her, "What have you done?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he really wanted that moment of like making Lance pay for what he's done.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They've been out on the. I mean, everybody who's in that room has an idea of what Lance has done, even if they don't know the full amount of it. But Daryl and Maggie and Negan and Gabriel and Aaron, whatever, they've all been out, like, sort of being pursued by Lance, so it's like they have a special understanding of what he has put everyone through, and Daryl is just not wanting to give up his position, and he's kind of pissed that it looks like Carol brokered something, and he's gonna have to, like, give up his little toy that he has a knife to the throat of. But I thought his first reaction to Carol, I was like, whew, that's rough. It was tough to hear him, like, sort of speak to her that way. Things sort of smooth a little bit, like, towards the end of the episode, but it was rough to hear.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you could definitely hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Carol walks in with them, Daryl's like, okay, she, literally, what did you do? You know what I mean? Because he knows Carol went off and did something, probably rather rash.
Because he wasn't expecting to see her. They sent Negan because they knew Negan could make it through the gates, but they didn't know what was going to come back,
Right.
And seeing Carol and seeing Pamela along with Mercer, like, that was all unexpected. And for Carol to be there is like, what's happening? Like, we send Negan, who's like, Mr. Kick-Ass, and and you guys come back and you, like, got, like, a diplomatic mission coming back because, Pamela's dressed like Pamela and doing her thing, and it just was not what Daryl wanted in that moment. He wanted revenge. He wanted justice of some kind, and I'm not sure he feels like he got that.
Oh no,
of sticking his hand.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, that was kind of one of my first points was, they come in and Mercer's like, everybody stand down, and everyone but Daryl puts their guns down, and then Daryl then kind of whips Hornsby against the wall and keeps the knife at his throat. And it's at that point that Carol comes in, and that's when he sees her, and he's like, oh hell, what did you do? And I think it's only when Maggie kind of agrees to go along with it that Daryl kind of accepts it. But what does he do? He then stabs Hornsby right in the hand with that bayonet that he's holding, right? And then he yanks it out, and of course Hornsby's screaming like a little girl, which is great. And he just drops the bayonet, and he just turns around and walks away, and he turns to either Mercer or Carol or Pamela or all of the above, and he just said, "Don't worry, he'll live."
It was great too, because, like, just everything about his reaction, like, he literally just drops the knife, and he's not, like, he doesn't care about, like, keeping the knife or whatever. He's, like, literally showing his disgust with the whole thing.
Right.
It was really well done, and a great line.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There's some some great Hornsby and Pamela moments before they get back to the Commonwealth. You made a point of talking about that scene, and it's really great. That whole, the one that ends with him basically like, I'm more involved than you think I am.
Oh, I'm definitely in the game.
Yeah. Because those that are in the game have to proclaim that they are in the game. That feels right. There's a lot of speculation online, and I wondered what you thought. I know you sort of binged these back to back, so some of the finer details might not have. But he did make a comment about contacts.
Yeah.
My contacts are, I've kept those, I brokered those, or, whatever sort of like way he was saying that. There's a lot of conjecture online that he has contact with the CRM. What do you think about that as a possibility?
Well, I think and given the context of the show, I think it's possible because they do want to centralize and bring it all together. All I would say against that though is that if the CRM knew about the Commonwealth, don't you think they would have wiped it out by now?
See, but I think I heard someone say it this way, and I agree with you. Like, I think that that's a possibility, but I think I heard someone else online say that, how could the Commonwealth, how could the CRM not know about the Commonwealth? It's a really large settlement. What did they say? 60,000?
60,000, yeah.
I
mean,
mean,
it's like in Ohio, right?
Yeah. And of course, there's always someone who's like eagle-eyed observer and sees like a map or a thing in a scene, and they do the blow up the picture. But I guess apparently on World Beyond, there was, there's been, they showed a bunch of different maps here and there for the CRM, and there was some stuff that was labeled in Ohio. Now, Ohio was a big state, and 60,000 people is the size of like a small town. But if it's the only thing, could you see it if you didn't happen right upon it? I don't know. I don't know.
It's a good question. And why would the Commonwealth have seen the helicopters?
Right. That's the other thing. I think I honestly don't know what to think. I agree with you that they have always been sort of, at least in the last couple of seasons of all the shows, has been trying to position it so that everything sort of has some type of connection back to the CRM in some way. And I think that that's possible. If those aren't the contacts that Lance is talking about, then, and they haven't had contact with them yet, then maybe that is something that we see before the end of the series, is that connection between the Commonwealth and the CRM starting to happen.
Could be.
I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, they do have a little bit of cover because, they showed Lance out there brokering with the one dude who was making like,
the
heroin.
drugs. Yeah, right.
So there's that. And I don't know, like, is that like one of the things? Is it, I have a connection, we have this, and we use some of it, but we also barter it with someone else who could also use the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I think the possibility's there, but I don't think there's enough information for it just yet.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I mean, my first reaction when he said that, when he's like, I have contacts and there are certain alliances that if I were to go away could become a problem for you. And again, he's basically, it's either he's just saying anything and seeing what sticks on the wall because he doesn't want to die.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
But I think too there is some truth to it because we did see him go out to that settlement that was making the heroin and all of that. So, and you get the sense, at least I get the sense that he's the fixer for Pamela. That anything that needs to be done, he takes care of it, and she doesn't need to know.
Right.
So
exactly.
So who knows what kind of people on the outside that he has, talked with, formed alliances with, exchange supplies with in order to get what he needs, what the Miltons needed. I mean, that's kind of the fascinating thing about him. He knows where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah. Yes.
So the other thing I loved about that scene between Pamela and him was it was really liked it because we got to see what I'm calling the onset of the antagonist craziness for Pamela.
Yes.
In that he's like tied up and on the ground, right? and so she comes up and is, they're having this talk, and and she's like, you think you're in the game and you were never in the game. And then she like reaches out and she like kind of like straightens his hair, kind of like you would for a little child.
Yep.
Right. And it was weird. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was weird.
Oh God, it was weird. Yes.
Right. But then when you take that in context with the next episode with the ghoul Sebastian and Hornsby again at the end of that scene, it's like, here comes the cray for Pamela.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was very interested in watching the Talking Dead that was this most previous Sunday, because Lila Robbins was on, who plays
Pamela.
Yeah. So, and there wasn't anything that was like sort of earth shattering, but she does talk about that moment. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I do recommend. She talks about her little creepy moments with Lance, and I recommend a listen to it. And like I said, there's nothing earth shattering there, but she talks a little bit about the process of how they got there, what it is, what it's about. So
does she talk about the creepy "I'm gonna stick my hand into your pants to find your coin" moment?
Sure did.
Okay, because that was also super creepy.
It was. Yeah, it's a good Talking Dead episode, and like I said, no like big scoops or anything like that, but it was a good crew of people, because it's no pun, it was Terry Crews and Ross One Take Marquand was on.
All right.
And Lila Robbins. So
okay.
So it was a good mix, because Ross has been on a ton of times, and Lila, it was her first time, and Terry's a super fan. So it was a nice mixture of people. So it's a worthwhile episode to watch.
Okay. So you're saying it's not so much some earth-shattering secret as more of just an actor talking about how they did the scene.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I love that too. So that
Yes.
I definitely want to check that out.
More process oriented than it is plot driven. If that helps. So.
No. Cool.
Yeah. I did
still
like
though, it was creepy.
Oh God, yes. Just like creep factor of on a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11.
Yeah, it's a super
Yeah, gross. Speaking of Pamela, I also wanted to say too, when she gets back and they do their little speech, where she's like, the one where she's inside like the city hall, like sort of like entryway area, like on the stairs, and she's talking to the small group of people, and all of our people are off to the side, and oh God, don't they look terrible, because they're all like dirty and gross. And she's like, these fine people helped, and Lance is the one who did this or whatever. I liked that they took the time. They panned the camera over to the crowd, and they took two like extras that had no lines at Commonwealth people, and they literally like looked at each other and like rolled their eyes at what Pamela was saying. And I thought that was a really great thing to sort of add a layer in there, that we know that the Commonwealth isn't what it seems, and that there is rebellion, and there are people who push against it, but there's also like normal everyday folks who are just like, oh God, this lady, you know what I mean? So it's not, so there are obviously the extremes of people, but there's plenty of people still in the middle who are like, listen, I got a roof over my head, I've got an army that keeps me safe, this lady's kind of a pain in the ass, and I don't really like her, she's a little pretentious when she does her speeches, but whatever. So I thought that was very sort of normal and telling that they included that in there, some just sort of run-of-the-mill folks that were like, ugh, this lady in her speeches. So I liked it.
I did too, and you're right, it is, most people are like, clapping, and you can see that they're, into it and buying it. Yeah. And then there's that two that kind of look at each other and roll their eyes like, do you believe this crap?
Unbelievable.
So yeah.
All right, I will admit I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. You did very good. I'm very proud of you. You have far less points written down than I do.
You were very pointy in this one.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of points. I'm gonna skip a couple of them because they're not that, they're not super important. I made a point about talking about Ezekiel staying. I want to talk about that when we talk about 19 because I have some thoughts. So
Okay.
set that aside. I do want to make sure it's called out by people online. Oh my God, the sonogram scene. So awful. So awful because, first of all, let's take the history aside for a second. And let's not talk about how one of the sort of final lovey-dovey husband-wife moments that Glenn and Maggie had was doing the exact same frickin' thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's set that aside for just a
Well,
second.
you don't think that wasn't intentional? You don't think that Angela Kang didn't know that?
No, I think that was intentional.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It was intentional. But it's also kind of got a gross factor because it's also like, oh my God, Annie is so dead. Like, she is dead. Deader than dead. Annie's dead. That baby's dead. They're dead. I just don't. How do you have Dead City with Maggie if you don't have that happen?
Okay, we don't know. It's very possible that Negan's going to make sure that she spends all of her time on a dumpster, okay?
Listen, that's entirely possible, and I'm not saying that there isn't the possibility that exists that they meet up with their peoples, the few of them that are left, that they hunker down in some location, and there's some sort of outside circumstance that creates a reason for Maggie and Negan to leave and go to New York City, yada yada. And he leaves Annie in the safe hands of, XYZ people. Who knows? Does that possibility exist? Absolutely. But when you sort of lay the groundwork for he's got the plot armor. She don't have no plot armor. And on top of it, you also don't want to stay, but you also have a small, like a little disorder happening with your pregnancy. Why would you leave? Well, we want to leave because of our people and da-da-da-da. And like, you are literally signing your death warrant. Like, you were already gonna die, but now you're gonna die. Like, I don't know. Help me see, like, and like I said, does the possibility exist that there's some other sort of storyline that will happen to Annie and, baby Negan? Sure, that's a possibility. Is it probable? I don't think so.
Hey, for all we know, she will be in serious jeopardy, and then she will be saved by some sort of computer-generated llama.
Anything's possible. I mean, that is not a zero possibility. A computer-generated llama is not a zero possibility.
I think so.
I think the death of Annie and baby Negan is the highest probable possibility, but I do acknowledge that there are other possibilities.
I agree with you. I think that clearly the death knell is sounding for Annie and baby Negan, and it's about as loud as the death knell sounds in the next episode for poor Lydia and Elijah.
Good Lord, yes.
And again, and we're just following Walking Dead protocol here, and that is optimistic about the future. You don't have one.
And if it would be interesting, Angela made a point. She did this scene. It's literally like even the filming of it. People have posted online side-by-side shots of when Glenn and Maggie did it and when they did it. And it's literally like the same sort of shooting situation. It's a small room. It's got a wall right there. It's, they are in exactly the same kind of positions and blah, blah, blah.
It's a shot-for-shot remake.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. In the Glenn and Maggie version, the mom and the child survive, and the dad, the husband, is killed.
Right.
Now, in the flip-flop, wouldn't it make sense if we had the mom and the child dies and the dad survives?
Of course.
Right. So that's the other thing. Yeah. So I'm really sorry, Annie. You seem really nice. I wish we'd gotten a little bit longer to get to know you, but bye-bye. You're done.
Okay, everyone, we're shooting out Annie now. Let's give a round of applause.
Okay, round of applause for Annie because she's done.
She gonna die.
I don't want to harp on it too much, but I did really like the Daryl and Judith scene in the church. I thought that was really cute, and I think they needed to have that scene. They needed to have a sort of Daryl telling Judith, I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I care about you and I'm trying to do the best I can. And that's all I can do. And and she knows that, but she was just like, ugh, I need to be upset with everything right now because it's not going the way I thought it would.
Yeah, well, and I like too that he acknowledges, her whole argument why she runs away is that they're leaving the Commonwealth, and she's like, look, we should be staying here to help these people because they need our help, and that's what Mom and Dad did at Alexandria and at Hilltop and at the Sanctuary. I mean, every place we've gone to, and yet here you're running away because you want to leave. That's not right. And I like that when they have that little scene in the church, not only does he say, hey, look, I'm doing the best I can here and I don't know what I'm doing, but he also says, you're right, the world should be the way you want it to be, and it sucks that it's not.
Right. Yeah, agreed. So yeah, that was a great scene. Obviously, tons to say and whatever, but I'm tapping my watch here. We're pressed for time here. I just want to say my one thing that I understand the reason why they did it, but my tiny nitpick of something that made me go was God, man, that wrestling scene was just ridiculous. And they did say they said on the Talking Dead.
No, it was in the featurette too.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was the featurette. It was a COVID choice. They needed to pick something because in the comics they have a football game. Yes. Memory serves. Yes. And they needed to do something that was part of Founders Day, and they were like, well, this is great because it's just two people, so you can do something that was sort of sporting or whatever and have it be. And I'm like,
well, plus, wrestling is theatrical and you have good guys and bad guys, and the way that the writer that brought it up to her presented it to Angela Kang was it can help the Commonwealth tell their story about isn't the Commonwealth awesome? Because, like Commander Commonwealth wins the match, right? And then what does he do when he gets up? He goes to the side of the ring and is going Commonwealth, and you know what I mean? So it's a total propaganda thing for Pamela to, you have this wrestling event, everyone's into it. Oh my God, the guy's outnumbered 2-1, yet he comes back and wins because he's the Commonwealth and we're great, Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. That's what Angela Kang said, that the COVID realities just made like doing a football game sequence just not gonna happen. And so this was the alternative. It didn't bother me so much. I am not a wrestling fan, so I'm just like, whatever, I get it, and I just moved on. But I did like that it gave Pamela somewhere to stand, surrounded by everyone when the Sebastian tape rolled and they could start throwing crap at her. I thought that was really fun.
And I think too, it also lent itself to. I mean, lots of sports have a microphone, but a microphone is so emblematic of like a boxing or a wrestling match. Being inside that ring, having a, let's get ready to rumble with the thing. It's a very big emblem of that. So I get that. I just, like you, like wrestling has a place in my mental history, and it's, Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage. And it's not these dudes, man.
It's not these dudes, yeah, okay.
Plus, I think I still have a slight bad taste in my mouth from when they did the wrestling on Fear with Aisha Tyler.
Oh,
and
yeah.
See what I did there?
I see. Why did you have to bring that up?
I went to the bad place.
Oh, now there's more therapy for me. Thanks a lot, Obama.
Thanks, Obama. Okay, so sorry, not a fan of the wrestling. I thought it was, as much as I understand the reasons why they had to do it, like logically, I get it. I'm just like, wrestling just does not make sense to me.
Yeah. You know what I would like to say, and I know that we want to get through this, but I did like that we actually got a appearance by fake Stephanie in this episode.
We did.
How about that, huh?
Yeah, she showed back up again.
And she's a badass. I mean, she's an ass kicker because she and the leader of Hornsby's Black Bag Group, I mean, they killed those like 9 people like that. I mean,
Yes.
you know, just went in there and can I help you? Bum, 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 bum. Okay, let's go.
It's funny because not long, I think after I watched this episode, Con Air was on, and come on, Con Air is just like the most delicious popcorn action movie you can. It's so ridiculous that it's awesome.
It's silly, and you just sit back and watch it and have fun. Yep.
You cannot. But anyway, I love the scene when Nicolas Cage discovers the guys with the plane in the little garage area, little hangar, and they're hiding, and they point their gun at him, and he's like, you can go ahead and do that, but then a bunch of people are gonna come in. You get it? SA. And he's all like full of himself, and the guy takes his gun away, screws on a silencer, and he goes, well, hooray for the sounds of fucking silence. And whenever other people use a silencer in something like that, I always think of that scene. I
go right to that line.
I go right to that line. So, and it was not long after I saw this. So, you know, hooray for the sounds of silence, because
that's right.
They were able to mow through 9 people.
Oh, they did. And again, if you know, as soon as they did it, and they cut to the shot of all of them lying there dead, I'm like, they didn't shoot any of those people, and they didn't take our advice, and they didn't aim for the head.
They sure did not.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that you can be X amount of years into a zombie show. You can cover other zombie ephemera. You can know everything you can about zombies. And when they shot them and they showed them laying on the ground and then they walked away, I for real for about 5 minutes was like, wow, man, why did they do that?
Really?
I did. But it was only just because I was really sort of caught up in all the stuff, and I didn't, like, I know who they were, that they worked there, but I didn't know that they were within the walls. I didn't understand that. So I just was like, at first I was like, are they just killing people that are gonna see something later? Like, I didn't get that the end game was, not right away. And as soon as things started to fall apart, I was like, oh, and now walkers are gonna come out. I get it. Yeah. So I got there, people. I'm not terrible. It took a little bit to get there.
No, that's completely understandable.
So let's talk about the chaos at the end, because
my God,
that's sort of our last thing, and we've got a couple of different points there, and I just want to say that it's a really good sign of how unliked you are if you're surrounded by people, you call for help because you're being attacked by a zombie, and everyone, like, you almost felt like everybody was kind of looking like, I'm not going to do it. Are you doing it? I'm not doing it. You doing it? No, I'm not doing it. You doing it? Yeah. It was really great. And in that moment when it happened, I was like, oh my God, no one's going to help him. No one's going to help him. No one's going to help him. And I wasn't sad. I was just like, oh, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. And it happened.
So it was great.
It really was. And it was a good kill too. Like, it was very like
bloody,
graphic and noisy and chewy, and I made a point too, like, I love that they took the time to have like the, you know, to use the sound effects after, you know, the zombie's been put down and Sebastian's just there and he's gurgling. So like the gurgling of like the throat filled with blood kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
was just really well done. So I loved everything about that. I thought leading up to that moment when he is attacked, I had real fear for Max. Max doesn't have any kind of storyline that we know of to follow. The death of Max would definitely change Eugene into a different character.
Oh, absolutely.
He certainly could definitely die. And so in that moment, I was like, this is it. That's going to happen. It's going to propel Eugene to this thing, which is going to create more tension within the groups and blah, blah, blah. And oh my God. And I was really tense and scared for Max. And when he pushed the zombie to her, and then when Eugene pushed it away, I was like, oh, okay, everybody's fine. And then when no one helped him, I was like,
Oh, he's gonna go.
He's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting too, because it's not how Sebastian goes in the comic books, but it was good. I liked it. I liked how it happened, because Sebastian does die in the comics, but it's a totally different way, and it's still a catalyst for other things. They did that, but they're just he died a different way, and they're still gonna use him as a catalyst for other things. Just it was just nice to see it sort of happen in a completely different way. If memory serves, doesn't he just get shot? He gets just like killed by someone.
Yeah, no, he does not get eaten in the comics. He gets somebody shoots him, and I can't remember who it is.
Because he is, unfortunately, spoilers. If you haven't read the comics and you don't want to know, then don't listen. But Sebastian is the one that shoots Rick. So he's the one who's responsible for Rick's death in the comics.
In the comic books, yes.
Yeah. So clearly they couldn't do that. So there's been a lot of conjecture, like, would he kill someone else and have that storyline happen? Because then obviously the death of Rick and whatever, then Sebastian is killed. It creates all of this tension between the groups and yada yada, and it sort of moves from there. It feels like that is still going to happen. They just used different circumstances to sort of arrive at this sort of similar junction of events. So I think it works.
I did too.
I think it was a good way to sort of skirt around the Rick issue. So.
Yeah. The thing that I loved about it, and this is rare for Walking Dead that they don't use it more, is that the ghoul takes that big chunk out of his neck, right? Mm-hmm. And then he like spits up like a whole mouthful of blood. I mean, his whole bottom lip and chin is just red because blood's running out of his mouth. And they rarely show that. They rarely show, when someone gets bitten like that, oh my God, clearly he's seriously hurt because he's, blood's coming out of his mouth, Yeah. So, and that really helps sell it of, this guy, he's not going to make it. The other thing that and Angela Kang touched on this in the featurette, and I did not pick up on this the first time, but I watched the featurette and then I watched it again, the episode again today, and I see what they were going for is that Angela Kang said that they wanted to give Judith almost like a Western kind of a story, in that she's like the reluctant gunslinger, because Daryl offers her the python and she's like, no, I don't want it, right? Because she wants to live in a world where you don't need guns and swords and knives and crossbows and all this stuff. And so what does Daryl say at the church, right? He said, I'll hold on to the gun for a while, and whenever you're ready, you can have it or not. He basically says it's totally up to you. And so then what happens? People need help in the clearing wherever they were, where that wrestling ring was. And so she asks for the gun back, and Angela Kang kind of describes it as it's the reluctant gunfighter, right, having to pick up the gun again, even though they tried to quit, and go straight or whatever. And it wasn't quite as corny and westerny as that, but I saw what they were trying to do. And then when she shoots Sebastian, the look on her face, good props to Kaylee Fleming in that, you really see that she's, torn up that this, she had to put this guy down, but she's torn up that she is using the gun again, So I really like that aspect of it, and the way that they staged that all, because if you think about it, Kaylee Fleming is the only one that did anything to those ghouls in that area at all.
Right.
So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, that the whole Sebastian scene going was it was well shot. It was well edited. It was exciting. And like, I was right there with you. First I'm like, oh my God, they're going to kill Max. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're going to kill Eugene. And then I'm like, oh no, it's Sebastian. But that was well done, right? Because I couldn't figure it out until it happened.
Exactly. And that's the thing that you're always looking for. That's what creates real tension, is when you really can't figure it out until it's actually happening. Then it's good. It was well written. It was well executed. So that's good.
So I have a question for you about Max. And
Okay.
I have been really not on the interwebs and the social media, so I don't know if this has been discussed or not. But the way she was, her, like the venom that she had towards Sebastian. And I know they had the one scene in the office where he kind of, was getting handsy with her and she had to kind of fight to get away in the last batch of episodes. So we saw that. But my question is, do you think that there's more in their history that he might have assaulted her at some point? And she's, so this is sort of like, I'm going to get you. Because the one nit I had to pick about this is, Carol brokers this deal and they're going to get supplies for all their places to get them built and up and running, and all of them are going to get to leave. And then literally like 2 hours later, Max is like, you know what? I'm going to like play this tape and screw everybody over.
Yeah. That's a possibility. I mean, could it be like some backstory that she's using that maybe we won't ever really see on screen?
Right. Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
I think that's possible, because I think if something like that happened, she knows that if she said anything to her brother, he would kill Sebastian. And
Right.
then where would they be?
And then they're out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if she goes to Pamela, she knows Pamela's going to side with Sebastian anyway.
Right, because she has been witness to it for so many years. I think that's a distinct possibility. If it wasn't her specifically, maybe she was, in love with someone or had a really close friend and something happened to them,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe he never got in trouble for it, and so she's seen his behavior before. So I agree. There's a lot there. And her reaction, I agree, her reaction feels like it's more than just someone who feels like they've been helping cover up, some shithead son for a bunch of years. It feels like there's some more levels to that, like some more layers.
I really got the sense that, wow, there's something personal here between them, that she is, there's a lot that she wants to make up for, that, he has wronged her in the past on. But and again, that was the world we live in. That was the first thing that I thought of, was like, well, he kind of got kind of handsy with her already. We've seen that once in the show. So what's to say it hasn't happened previously, and maybe it went a little further than what we saw the last time, so.
Yeah.
But
I think too that there might be a string of women who have been, assaulted, or talked into doing things they didn't want to do, in a very sort of Negan style way. And perhaps there's like a string of girls that have maybe committed suicide because they didn't feel like they had any place to go.
Or maybe they just disappeared, and maybe Max had to like help in the cover up, so she knows what he did, but she couldn't. Again, I really would love. I hope they go a little bit more into it, and we learn that. I agree with you. I don't think we will ever find out. It'd be nice to ask Angela Kang someday. Was that ever something that was discussed in the writing room or something, or maybe it's in Max's character. In the Bible of the Walking Dead, right? Does it say something in there? Because I certainly, that was my feeling, was like, man, the way she, went in there with that tape recorder and she pours him the brandy, right? And she's talking to him like, well, maybe you should try some truth, and then he starts talking, and then he says all that crap about how the Commonwealth is rigged. And she's like, now that sounds like you believe it. And then she goes, or maybe you're just a shithead, or whatever she said. There was a lot of swears in this episode. But yeah, her whole attitude, I mean, it was so calculating and just like, I don't want to say evil, but like she was, clearly planning. It was ill goodwill towards him, right? I mean, she wanted to take him down.
Yeah. For sure. Anything else that you think we should upon that maybe we didn't? Comfortable sort of leaving a couple of my things behind. They weren't nearly as important as I thought they were.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mean, the one thing that you didn't mention was just, we get introduced to the now suddenly Lydia and Elijah are a thing.
Yes. That's
and again, it's like, well, look, they've been like on the road together for like a month. What do you expect? They're like 15.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know,
and he would definitely had like googly eyes for her in like from day one, and she's a pretty gal, so I totally get it.
Yeah. And he's the only show in town, so yeah. I mean, I didn't find it surprising that they were together. I did like that, she, because of Henry, she felt the need to like, tell Carol that, look, it's not that I don't remember Henry, I do. And like you said, like she had almost like she felt bad about it and like was apologizing to Carol about, well, I kind of like this kid. And Carol's like, what are you talking about? Just look, live. I'm not going to take it personally,
Exactly.
But anyway, it was just interesting that, hey, we haven't seen Lydia, I think since like the 6th or 7th episode of the last trimester. And now suddenly, oh, wait, she has a boyfriend. Okay, cool.
So. There you go. She has some, rumblings of happiness in her life. Let's stomp those out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of that, let's move on to the next episode then. Since that's what we're gonna do. So wrapping up our discussion on episode 18, we're gonna jump into episode 19. We both kind of gave our quick thoughts, but I gotta say I really liked this episode.
Oh, I did too.
I just really, really liked this episode. It had, it wasn't even so much that there were jump scares or anything. There was just like full on horror mode. It was really, really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Really well done.
Yeah. What I thought was just so great about this episode was that it was broken into two things. You had the Aaron and the Variant story, right,
mm-hmm.
at the Renaissance Fair, and then you had what was going on in the Commonwealth, which they could have called this episode duets, because there were like 9 scenes in this episode with 2 characters that were just great.
Yep.
I mean, just really good writing, really good acting, and a bunch of them have Mercer, a bunch of them have Pamela, a bunch of them have Princess. It was great to see Princess again.
Yep.
So and it was, what was really great about it was the way they edited the story together. You had a lot of these talking scenes that were really well acted, and then cut in between them, you had these action scenes with the group that's out with the ghouls and at the Ren Fair. And again, you're right. Some of the scenes when the ghouls get into the Ren Fair, that was scary stuff, man. That the ghouls are, Angela Kang is like cranked up the ghoul kill potential to like 11 this season, because they are much more agitated, and people, I think, I don't know, maybe they're just taking it more for granted, but people are getting eaten a lot, it seems, compared to normal. So
there's a lot of chow time happening
this
season, this trimester, which is a little bit more than a little more than usual. So they're ringing the dinner bell, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I agree. This episode was great. I told you before we started, I think that of the 3 they've shown so far, this is clearly the best to me.
And I like this more than a bunch of the episodes that we've gotten leading up to this. Even in that second trimester.
Yeah.
Stuff with Leah and Pope and all that stuff, and the Hwacha and everything. Like if we had to go through those to get to this and like true horror that involves the walkers, which is what it's been since day one, then yes, I'm here for it. So good.
Yeah, right, me too.
Yes. Before we get into our points, let's again reacquaint ourselves with what episode 19 was. So let's do a quick episode description. Steve, that's your thing.
All right. So again, apologies. There is no brought to you for this one either. But next week, people, next week. So the episode, again, is 11.19, and the title is Variant, and the description is as follows. Eugene goes on the run, and Mercer is tasked to find him. Aaron's group faces a complication, and yes, I am using air quotes, on the road. And that is your episode description.
Yeah, I don't know if complication is really the word I'd use. Something we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it was.
Okay, so let's first discuss writer director, and then we'll dive right in. So let's check in there.
All right. Well, our writer for this episode, again, is a name that will sound very familiar because she's written a bunch of episodes, and it's a gal named Vivian C., and her last name is TSE, and she is an executive producer of the show. She has written a grand total of 8 episodes of The Walking Dead, and in the season 11 here, she's written 3 episodes of this season. She wrote 11.3, which was entitled Hunted, and it was really split into 2 parts. Maggie and Negan and the group fight the Reapers, and I think they're on their way to Alexandria. I think this is the one where now I'm blanking on his name. Alden, right? He gets hurt. Oh, yeah. And I think this is where they leave him in the church. But if not, it was right around that time. And then the other storyline of that one was when Carol and a bunch of the gals from Alexandria go out to try and catch some horses. Yeah. If you remember that, because they need horses to do stuff and so on. Then she wrote 11.12, and that was entitled The Lucky Ones. And the highlights of that is that's the episode where Pamela Milton makes the tour of Alexandria, Oceanside, and Hilltop. And you remember she's wearing like the safari outfit and the pith helmet and all that stuff. And then the other one is, and the other thing that happens is Ezekiel kind of goes in for like a checkup, and he finds out that, hey, you're at the top of the surgery list. So that was the other part, and then she wrote Variant. So those are the 3 from this season. So again, a really a decent writer. She's written a bunch, and she is an executive producer of the show. So
nice.
And then our director is a first-time director, and it is also a gal. It's a gal named Karen Gaviola. And again, this is her first Walking Dead credit, so she hasn't done anything else on this show, but she has a ton of other credits in the TV land. She's worked on NYPD Blue. She worked on Lost. Hello. She worked on Prison Break, CSI Miami, CSI, the regular CSI, Criminal Minds, Grimm, Hawaii Five-0, Lucifer. I mean, a huge list. She did Blacklist, another one of your favorites. So excuse me. So yes, she has a ton of TV creds. And I think it really shows, because this episode, I think, really cooks in terms of how it's shot and how it's edited, in that it moves quite along. And when you do get into that stuff with the Variant and the ghouls at the end, it is some really good stuff, I think. So, but that is your writer and your director.
So I would say, I mean, obviously there's like we're saying, there's 2 sort of main storylines as we're going through this. We've got what's happening in the Commonwealth with, Pamela and Sebastian, the Eugene, sort of the fallout of the riot, as it were, with, Eugene hiding out, and they're trying to find Max and all of that stuff. So the sort of the tendrils of things that are happening in the Commonwealth, lots of tension. So there's like, personal / political tension that's happening in the Commonwealth. Meanwhile, fear for your life tension is happening out with our group that went to go to Oceanside. And, from the moment that one walker just turned his head and looked into the woods, and this turned out to be like the walker. He was the Variant.
He's the Variant,
them. It gave me, first of all, chills. I always think about in season 1, I think it's episode 1 where he's in Atlanta right away. And it, when that one where he turns the corner and he ends up with all the, the Zeds, and he's in I can't remember if it's in 1 or in 2, because I think it's in 2 that he gets out of the what's it called?
The tank.
The tank. Thank you. I kept wanting to say Jeep because we were talking about your Jeep before the show, and really it's tank. So I think it's episode 2 because he gets out of the tank and fights them a bit, and that's when they do the whole thing and the guts and whatever. But there's one walker. It's the one that was on the bus, and he's in like the blue suit, and he's got longish hair, like shoulder length hair, and he's very human. And he like turns and looks and is like taking things in. Mm-hmm. And I always think of that, like when people talk about like, oh, the walkers could do this and there could be variants. People always point to the one in episode 1 or 2 or whatever that breaks the glass when they're inside that sort of department store. And I get it. Mm-hmm. That's definitely, because they're saying like they set up the rules in advance. And I agree with that. But I always think of that one because he's such a distinct figure and he stands out. And I just always think of that guy whenever they discuss the idea of variants. And it made me think of him again. They had that one walker who like turned his head, and then we find out later he's the one who's the variant.
Yeah.
But yeah, is so creepy. I found myself like the stuff that was happening in the Commonwealth with Eugene was there was some sweet moments, and then there were some really creepy moments between Pamela and Lance, and there was some, the inevitable like person talking over the dead body and stuff like that. Like that's creepy but understandable, and those were all like good sort of plot movement things happening in the Commonwealth, and they were great. But every time they switched away, I was like, okay, we're back with the other guys. Like to me, that was like the best part of the episode was, dealing with all of that. And I wanted to ask a question. I'm curious. There's again social media stuff about the variants. And obviously, we'll talk about the scenes themselves, but the variants themselves we first heard them talk about different variants of walkers in that post-credit scene that was in the World Beyond episode, the finale there, where we got that thing that happened in France and whatever. And I'm wondering if that, like, do you think, like, could that be involved in sort of helping set up the Daryl goes to France thing? Like, are the variants sort of like pointing us in that direction? Is it something separate? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's an interesting coincidence that that scene was in France, and now they're going to do this Daryl Dixon show, and he's going to be in Paris.
Yeah, I think at this point, all we really have to go on is it right now is coincidence. But
true.
Let's see how it plays out. Are we going to see more variants in the next 5 episodes?
Yeah.
Will we get a running ghoul at some point? Will we get, a ghoul that can use a gun like Bub in Day of the Dead or something? I mean, we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see what do they want to, how much does Angela Kang want to devote to that with the time she has left?
Yeah, because there's not a lot of bandwidth left, and do you want to devote too much?
Well, and there's a lot of Commonwealth story that they got to get to. So it might be a case of no.
Yeah, there's still a lot of story to get to for sure. I agree with that. I like the way it rolled out, because if you think of who would reveal themselves as a variant walker, like which people, like that was almost a perfect group of people, because their immediate reaction was that it was a whisperer, and they were immediately like, and that look on Lydia's face when she was using her spear and the walker grabbed the spear and like pulled it, like in a very human gesture. Her look on her face was just, she couldn't believe it, and she stabbed them to get her spear back and sort of be able to retreat. But it reminded me of that moment when Jesus was fighting and the walker ducked.
The walker ducks, yeah.
Yeah, and that was just such a like, this shouldn't be happening. And obviously we know that they aren't whisperers, but it played out like that moment. And later on when Aaron even says, whisperers, I'll do this and you do that, and we'll find the whisperers and weed them out and then, figure it out. So they just assumed, because who would think that a regular old walker would just like open the doors and whatever. And obviously they have to sort of confront that once it's clear that it wasn't a whisperer. But it was just interesting that, like, Aaron went through this really tough stage with the whisperers. He had that really ugly moment that happened at the hilltop that one time.
Oh yeah,
they found
when he let the walker bite that one whisperer right on the hand. Yeah,
he sure did. And obviously Lydia's, her history with them, and she was able to see those two. They were both able to, like, right away, oh my God, it's this. And it turned out to not be that, but it also put them in a heightened state of, I think it's possible, like, if you had some other group of people who maybe did or didn't have like maybe they had like less exposure to the whisperers, or never did, like if they were just some Commonwealth people, maybe they would react differently, because they'd be in a more like unbelievable state, like, oh no, that door isn't opening, that can't be happening right now because they're walkers. But they were immediately had this like base of knowledge, and they're like, it's not walkers, it's this other thing, act accordingly. So they were able to sort of defend themselves quicker and be in a different state of mind, because they were much easier to sort of snap to, oh, it's this. So I just thought it was interesting that they had the variant happen with this group of people who sort of had that sort of back story with the whisperers. So that's just me. All right. So anyway, I went off, speaking of variants, I went off into various little story tendrils there. But you, on your notes, how many, did you count them, all of the great scenes?
I think there's 9 that I listed, and there actually could have been a 10th one, but I didn't put it in there. But there were just, it was so great because everybody kind of got a scene to just, play and act. And it was, and I got to say, the performances were great, right? A lot of these folks, all of the regulars, they have such a handle on their characters now that they can really get into the nuance and really play scenes up. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I really did. I mean, there was so many great scenes. I mean, it starts when we get the scene between Mercer and Rosita, when, she's sitting in the interrogation room, right? And he comes in and he's like all business, and he like reads her name and her address, and he's like, is that information correct? And she's like, so that's it, huh? This is it. We're gonna pretend we don't know each. Yeah, and he's just like, I got my job to do and everything. And then and finally, he kind of has that little, he kind of acknowledges, he's like, look, he's like, I respect you, but I have to do what I have to, because he's in like save my sister mode, right? He's, he can't help them because it will hurt his sister Max, and that's just not going to happen. But I love that scene, and that just it was a real short scene. It started off, but then the next one was Pamela and Ghoul Sebastian, and it's where he revives when he comes back, and again she does the creepy hair thing, right, where she kind of brushes the hair out of his eyes. Remember, she's got the wet towel, and she's kind of like wiping the blood off of his face, and again it's just like, yeah, you're going nuts. But I like that scene too, because and what does she say, like, at least now we can't disappoint each other anymore, right? Remember that line that she gives him, and that's right when he revives. And then I like too, because they kind of mess with us, because as soon as he revives and turns, she gets up and she opens the door, and one of the stormtroopers is there, and she says, take care of him. And I'm like, wow, she just, told that dude to like put him down, right? Isn't that what you thought when she said that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then of course they kind of they fool us because later on the scene between the to me the best one of the best scenes of the whole episode is when Pamela talks to Lance. It's the creepy one with the coin, but that one, and then of course they bring in Ghoul Sebastian, and that whole thing happens. But yeah, I thought that scene was great, and then you get the a really great scene for one take Marquand between Aaron and Lydia.
Yeah.
When he tells that great story about Eric and all the times he said no when Eric asked him out, and now he's like, I now that he's gone, all I can think of is if I just would have said yes and taken away one of those no's, I would have had like one more day with him. And literally basically telling Lydia, look, live your life. And what did he say? The only thing we can control is when we say yes. And I again, it wasn't so much a great two-person scene because Lydia really just does a lot of reacting in it. She doesn't say a lot, but it's still a great scene for Aaron. I was really happy that they let him do that they gave him that scene. But then you get the scene between Max and her brother.
Yep.
Right when he's trying to get her to sign the thing that said like she's off her meds and depressed and all this, and she's just like it's crap. She's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And he's like, they're going to kill you. And she's like, I don't care. This place is rotten and I hate it. And again, you get I think that and what happened in the previous episode is what gave me the idea that something happened to Max here.
I think you're right. That's a really, it's not something that hit me at the time, but seeing you point it out, it definitely makes like logical sense that there would be more to it than that. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, but I think your idea has a lot of merit too, in that maybe it didn't happen to her, but it either happened to someone she knows or she had to cover up for people for him, for Sebastian, and it just is. It's like It's like Macbeth, right? She's just washing her hands and the blood won't come off, right? But yeah, that was a great scene. You have the scene between Eugene and Daryl when Eugene is like, you better get out of the way, Hoss.
Yeah.
and he literally rolls up his sleeves, right? And he's getting into fighting stance like Queensberry rules, and Daryl is just looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? And then finally Daryl just kind of cocks his head button and he just kind of steps back and he's like, go ahead. And Eugene's like, you're not going to stop me? And he's like, nope. And then again, props to Eugene in that he has that great little moment where he says, you're not going to stop me because I'm not going to go because I'm a coward. And Daryl's like, no, you're not going to go because you're smart. And then Eugene goes on to that whole bit about, look, the only reason I'm alive is because I'm a really good liar. And, I that's my only skill. Right. And then he asks Daryl, he's like, do you think people are born brave or do they become it? And Daryl, and again, Norman Reedus plays this scene great and he doesn't say much at all, but it's just the way he treats Eugene when he's doing all this. And Daryl just kind of shrugs and goes, both. And he walked in and basically leaves him alone. I love that scene. I thought that scene was great. And I was really happy for Josh that he got to do that scene too, Yeah. But and again, the Pamela Lance scene was my favorite, but the other ones that I thought were really great were the princess scenes, with Ezekiel first, and then the one with Mercer was awesome. And wow, did Paolo nail that scene when she talks about her stepfather and her stepbrother and all that stuff. Oh my God, was that great? Did you like that scene? Was that a good one for you?
Oh God, yeah. I think that I saw some people talk about it online and I completely agree. It's, here's this actress who's taking this really sensitive backstory and she's just giving it so much like heart and there's just so much, there's a lot there to process. And you believe every word that she says, the way she carries herself, the way, she explains everything to Mercer and is basically like, you're a good guy, but you have to understand, like, this is my life and I got to get out. I can't stay here.
Well, did you not love the line when she said, "My whole life, every man I've met turned into a monster, even before they literally turned into monsters." That line was great. And when I loved it, and I think it might have been with Ezekiel, but when she says, "I'm tired of people telling me I should be happy with what I have or the way things are." She's like, "I want things to be better." That I thought was great. And then when she explains her upbringing with her stepfather and her stepbrother and how her mom didn't do anything, she said, "The way things are now in the Commonwealth is like my stepfather. And if I don't do anything about it, that means I'm my mother." And then she just looks at him and she goes, "I am not my mother." And it was great. And you can, and again, Mercer was great too, because she was just, nailing him with these emotional haymakers. And he was just like, "I don't know what to tell you." Again, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful scenes. And then again, we have to talk about Pamela and Lance, because what the hell was going on when she sticks her hand down his pants, right? Because it was very seductive almost. It was creepy.
It was great. It really was.
It was awesome, right?
Because it's unexpected. Like, you're not expecting someone to do that. That's so bizarre.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great because it's such a small thing that she did. Mm-hmm. And for a second, you're like, what's happening? And she pulls out the coin, and you're like, okay, she's watched him flip that coin like a million times. She knows it's in his pocket. She knows, you know what I mean? So there's an understanding there, but it's such a small but intimate and creepy gesture, like all at the same time. And it's just this little moment, and it says so much, but also doesn't tell us anything.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's still a lot of mystery there, which I think is great. I really think it's great. I think, and like I said, watch that Talking Dead, and hear Lila talk about it. She's fantastic. I love her. She had a really great arc on the Blacklist. Which that's my show, and she was fantastic on that show. As soon as they announced she was going to play Pamela, I was like, yes, she's fantastic. She's been like that girl as a character actor on so many series that it's hard to. She's on The Boys, right? She's the one that plays the one who is the FBI agent who messed everything up and yes, that's right. She's fantastic in everything she does, but she's like a featured player on so many great shows, and I love like her reaction on Talking Dead is great. She's talking about the fandom and how great it is, and she seems like really, really cool and very genuine. But having her talk about these scenes, it was really, really great. And I hope people like her explanation for it. I did. I thought it was cool.
Okay. Well, and then let me ask you.
Okay.
So that scene happens, right? And first of all, it's great because Lance is again begging for his life, right? Yes. And he says, "Look, I'm really sorry. I didn't. And she's like, "You killed my son because your, henchmen, your minions shot all those workers and let them turn into walkers, and my son is dead." And he's like, "Whoa. I did that, but I never in my wildest dreams wanted him to get hurt." And he's like, "I took a gamble and it didn't pay off." And then you see that twinkle in her eye when he said gamble, and that's when she sticks her hand in his pants, and you're like, "What's going on?" And then she comes up with the coin, right? And she's like, "All right, here, pick. If you pick which one in my hands the coin's in, you get to live, or I won't kill you, or whatever," right? And then he finds the coin, right? And big sigh of relief. But let me ask you, when she opens the door and they bring in Ghoul Sebastian, did you not think that she was going to let him eat Lance?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Until it was described like what he was sort of there for, I immediately was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm like, they're going to kill Hornsby.
Well, and the thing was that I was like, that's how you make it around it. You say, I'm not going to kill you, because she didn't. She wouldn't have. Right. She just, it would be like a, sort of foisted on your own petard moment. Like, oh, I didn't kill you. The tragic circumstances of what you did is what killed you.
It's the karma is coming back to get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially too because again I cannot again say how much I really appreciated the writing in this episode when Lance, right before he comes in, Lance is like, because she, he picks the hand and the coin's there, and she kind of like goes like, well, I guess you're gonna stay, or has that look of like, well, I'm not gonna kill you, and he immediately is like, oh my God, Pamela, you won't regret this, no more secrets, no more hidden agendas. He's like, I am like 100% at the Milton's disposal. And then she brings in the ghoul, and I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna let a Milton dispose of him. This is so awesome, right? But still, what they did was cool too. But I as soon as I saw that, I made it on my hat. That must ask Diana, did she think that was it for Lance too? And part of me was part of me was like, I'm a little disappointed because I almost wanted Lance to get it from one of the group. Yeah. Like, don't you want Daryl to kill him or Carol? God, yeah. Either, somebody, right? Because, he's a douche nozzle, and he deserves it. But I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so awesome, right? Particularly because I just watched the previous one where we just saw Sebastian get eaten in gory awesomeness. So I was really excited for that. But I love that scene between the two of them. I thought that was great. And the fact that she, throws the machete on the ground and basically goes, the meat's still warm, feed my son. And then she leaves. You're just like, oh my God, she is just batshit crazy now.
Yeah, it was just such a great, because you worry, like when she had that moment when she's like alone with Sebastian, you're like, is she gonna do that? They're gonna do that thing where it's like, I'm going through this, I'm mourning and I'm acting strangely because I'm not dealing with it very well. Because there was some, teetering on the edge moments.
Oh yeah.
For a bit while she was there, but she sort of regained her focus. And is like, I am as diabolical as you think you are. I am 10 times worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I can play this whatever game you insist you're in the game. I'm way better at the game than you are. Yeah.
She's basically like, you play the game, I wrote the game.
I made the damn game. Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's great too because all right, now she is gonna be the bad guy, and that was kind of my note. I said first sign that you're an antagonist in The Walking Dead is you have a loved one as a ghoul on a leash somewhere. And before everybody writes in, yes, I know Michonne had the two ghouls that were obviously important people in her life and all that, but let's be honest, her thing was much more practical. I mean, she did hack off their arms, she did hack off their jaws, whereas the crazy ones, they keep them, they don't want to damage them at all because they're still alive to that. You know what I mean? I think it's a little different. So, but yeah, once you have a dead relative or a dead girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever, daughter, son, mother, father, that you keep alive in the closet because you can't let them go, yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah. Yes. And definitely, yeah, Pamela was teetering. She was almost there.
Yes.
And again, like she said, take care of it. But like we said, they didn't kill him. They just must have fed him or something. And then she was like, feed my son. So so Sebastian is still around. He's still a ghoul, and we haven't seen him put down yet. So I'm very curious how that plays out in the next episode or so.
Yeah,
like, is that because the storyline is that Sebastian kills someone and then he gets killed. Would it be interesting if it became the reverse? If Sebastian is zombified and he kills someone.
Yeah, that could be. That could totally be. Yeah.
Could be.
I like your thinking. Your thinking.
Keep going with your points, and then I'm going to jump into with some of my stuff, but go with all of your scenes that you liked.
Okay. Well, really the only other one that I wanted to talk about was the final one between Rosita and Eugene. Just because of all the baggage that those two characters have with each other.
Oh God, yes.
And it's I think it's funny because Daryl's in the scene to begin with, And then as soon as Eugene is like, well, this is where I bid you to adieu, it's great because Daryl just like picks up his crossbow and is like, yeah, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want
I'm
any
done
part
with
of this. Yeah, whatever you guys decide. So he goes outside. And so it's Rosita and Eugene kind of has this, a man's got to be a man moment, right? And
Yeah.
and she is, again, very logical and basically saying, look, if you go turn yourself in, like you say, they're going to kill you.
Yep.
Right? They are going to execute you. You're going to be dead. And his response is, if I don't save Max, life isn't worth living anyway.
Yeah.
And it is like the great argument of the heart versus the head.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The logical versus the emotional. And again, props to Josh and to Christian in that they just played that scene so well. And even though she lets him go, she does the right thing and says, you all right, do what you got to do. You could tell it was killing her. Right. And then he gives her the string tie. Right.
Yeah.
And you can
the
like the turquoise, whatever it was, that thing. And what does he say? Like, oh, she'll
the
probably
bolo tie. Yeah.
and he's like, she'll probably be able to pull it off when she's about 15 or so, right?
Yeah.
And when she's holding it, when Rosie's holding it, you can tell. I mean, the tears are running down her face, right? Because she knows that, like, look, most likely this is not going to end well for you. But yeah, again, powerhouse scene, well written, well acted, and it just. Like I said, they could have called this episode Duets because it was just filled with two-person scenes that I thought were phenomenal.
I completely agree. I mostly had sort of reactions to and all of those scenes, all of those great scenes between these two first scenes. I just had a couple that I had some gut reactions off of. I want to make sure I hit.
Okay.
I actually thought the Pamela Sebastian scenes were kind of boring.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, oh, look, a mother is not, dealing with her son's death very well. Oh, interesting. Anyway, where did I put?
Yeah, I think Ezekiel.
Whatever. Okay, so Ezekiel. So
yes.
Okay, so I have a larger question about Ezekiel, which I was thinking about with the episode before, and really came into sharp focus in this episode. And I'm wondering, in the comic books, sorry, spoiler, Pamela is eventually removed as leader, and someone else is placed as a leader in her place. And there's a lot of conjecture over who that could or would be. A lot of people are leaning towards Mercer. I honestly don't think he would want it. His demeanor shows that he's not interested in that kind of like leadership role. He's very sort of background.
He doesn't want the politics at all.
Exactly. He would hate that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel had his health problems, and he did have this surgery, so he's not 100%, but he's also sort of put together this whole group of people who depend on him and trust him, and he's been doing good for those people. And his love of animals and all that other stuff. I'm curious with him staying behind. He's basically said he's not interested in kind of the rat race of, Alexandria and Hilltop and things like that. He's very content where he is. So if there was something that changed and sort of threatened that, and he felt he needed to step up, because he was very, like, they showed him in the crowd where he was like, we want Sebastian.
Oh, yeah.
At, episode 17. He was there and he's figured very prominently. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the idea of I just honestly think if they're going to install someone in power at the Commonwealth who's like someone from our crew, I think that he's like the leading candidate for that. honestly.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree. And then he even says, because remember Princess, again, a great scene between Ezekiel and Princess, when she's like, okay, so like we're all gonna pack up, and then you and me and Yumiko and maybe Tommy, and we'll all hit the road, and it'll be just like it was before. And he looks at her and he's like, I already told you, I'm not gonna leave. And Princess is like, huh? What do you know? No, we have to, right? And again, Princess being Princess, but he says something like, there's a real chance here to affect change, good change. And what better time to do it when the powers that be are afraid? And, this is right when all that stuff went down and Sebastian's dead. And, so there's a little bit of turmoil going on, So, I think that he is totally set up to be, a opposition party, candidate leader to maybe take over. And I think what's great is that he has a built-in assistant that he can yell at whenever he needs help, and he can just go, Tommy.
Yes, absolutely.
But I totally agree with you. I totally see that he could be in the television version of this story. He could be the one that gets slotted into Pamela's spot. Absolutely.
Because I think we've had him on the chopping block for so long.
Yes.
Because of his health issues, but it feels like that's a non-issue anymore. And I think instead of it being the thing that made him on the chopping block, I think it actually interestingly positions him as that person who could be the leader, because him being saved created this sort of compassion and wanting to help the people who could not get the surgeries and stuff like that, and to create a pathway for them to get that. It became sort of a life purpose for him, and I think that would help catapult him to a position where he would feel like he was the man of the people. And I think people would rally behind him because of his standing in the community.
Yeah. Well, and he even, I think it was in this one, he even admits it. He's like, look, since I've gotten the treatment I need. I think it's when he's talking to Carol, actually, and it might have been in last week's episode, or in 19 or in 18. But he says something like, I've been given a second chance here, and I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to do whatever I can to help as many people. So, he clearly has that kind of born again, new lease on life outlook that is, why he is doing all the things he's doing. So, absolutely. I think that is a really good observation. And I barring some, variant ghoul that climbs over the fence and eats him, I think it's going to happen. I totally think that's going to happen. Absolutely.
I think it's interesting too, since he was, I think it's interesting how it shifted, how our sort of perspectives have shifted, how they had him on the chopping block. I mean, at this time last year, when we were sort of moving into we're getting towards, Commonwealth, and that storyline is on the horizon, it was like Gabriel's done for. I thought Gabriel was done for during the Whisperer War. Right. Gabriel, Rosita, Eugene has been on the chopping block, but Ezekiel with his health issues and whatever,
right.
It's just been those people have been and to see it sort of shift in a different direction. I still want people to die. We need to get some major deaths, and I think we're going to get them. I just don't think. And here's the thing. Could Ezekiel still die? Absolutely. He could. He could lead a revolution, be the leader, and then something could happen.
You get taken out. Yeah.
Exactly. So it doesn't mean he's safe, but I think that there's a larger purpose for him, and I think that's definitely feels like that's the direction they're heading in.
Well, maybe they're just setting the stage for King Jerry and Queen Nabila.
It could be. And speaking of King Jerry, I just want to make sure, could we get some more slow-mo sequences of Jerry really, really killing it with heads?
Yeah.
Those scenes were great.
Yeah. I thought all the fight scenes were great. I thought, the way Aaron was fighting, and we already touched on it when when Lydia goes to try and get the variant with her staff, and he grabs onto it and literally pulls her in a very non-ghoul like move, right?
Yes.
I mean, it was great. But yeah, the slow-mo bits with Jerry were amazing. And what did he do? He killed like 4 or 5 in that sequence. And it was slash, 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 and then he kind of turns for a second and then gets that last one. It was really well done. And yeah, I agree. More, please.
Yes. And what's great is they talk a lot about that on Talking Dead. So I won't spoil it for you, but it's just they discuss that that action sequence a bunch, and it's really nice to see like how it was built and some of the stuff that's behind it. So
cool.
So I think you'll really like that. And we've already discussed the Lydia and Elijah are happy, so yeah, they're dead.
They're dead. Yeah. Oh, clearly. The only thing that would make them more dead is if she started writing in a journal.
Oh no. And I want to make sure we talk too about that moment where Aaron was so sure and he tore the face off of that variant walker.
Yeah.
And it was just a walker with like really gross, like really like jelly eyes in his eyeball sockets. And it was just gross. But that was just a really interesting like reveal. Now, we knew since the title of the episode, and we knew they were going to talk about variant walkers, we kind of knew that it was not a whisperer.
Yeah.
But they didn't know. But even though we knew that reveal was going to happen in a way that was surprising to Aaron, it still was really, really so effective. Like, when he just pulls that face right off and you're like, ugh, gross. And also, Aaron was wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I would say like we mostly knew. Mostly. In that, again, the title of the episode kind of tipped us off that, okay, we're going to see a walker that's a little bit different than the others. But until he pulled the face off, there was still a little bit of like, maybe it is a whisperer, because he was moving very human-like, right? I mean, he had just, the ghoul had just climbed up the side of the building, right? And we've never seen that before from anyone. In any of the seasons, in any of the shows, we've never seen a ghoul have that much, reasoning power in its brain to go, okay, well, they're up there, so I should just be able, I'm going to, no, we've never seen that. So yeah. And again, I love the look on his face, because first of all, the other thing too is that the ghoul gets up on top of the roof, right? And Jerry's like, dude, and the ghoul picks up a rock to smash his face, his head. I mean, like, picks up a weapon, right? And so you're like, holy crap. And so then Aaron starts pummeling this thing, and you hear him, and he's like, goddamn whisperer, bam, bam, and clearly getting a lot out, because as you said, he has a lot of bad feelings towards the whisperers. Yes. And so and again, the ghoul's not dying, even though he's tagging him with his mace hand and all that stuff. And then finally he pulls the face out, and that's again, it was a great reveal, the way they do it, and the way Aaron looks at it. He's like, holy crap, and then he stabs it in the face. And then you hear, I think Jerry says, since when could walkers climb up walls, and just this like you said, this like total disbelief that if our group had not encountered the Whisperers previously, they might have died, because they'd be like, this can't be happening.
Yeah.
It was great. It was again, it was so great that you had the Commonwealth stuff was just amazing acting, and the Ren Fair stuff had really good acting, but it had some really intense action. So again, I really liked this episode. I thought this episode was one of the best ones in a while.
My only nitpick is this Ren Fair place is on the way to Oceanside. We've never found this before.
Yeah, I agree. I had that too. I'm like, really? And that place was huge. And you're like, really? You'd never seen this place before? Yeah, I agree. If it's day 2 of the apocalypse, okay. But I mean, come on. Yeah, that bothered me a little bit too, I got to admit.
Yeah, it kind of had to let it go, but I was like, really?
Yeah.
Ugh, man. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and I get it. They go off the path because there's the herd in front of them, and so they're kind of going cross country and trailblazing and all that. I get it, but at the same time, right? It's like, really, don't you think every major settlement structure has been thoroughly explored and mapped in this area? Don't you think? I don't know. Again, we don't know where they were on the road. Maybe they were still in Ohio and they were unfamiliar. You never know.
Unfamiliar territory.
Yeah, but I agree that did kind of stick out at me. Like, really? There's like a whole Ren Fair there, like right there. Okay,
yeah.
So.
All right, that's what we're going with.
Yeah.
And I did want to say too, like I was thinking of it while we are talking about the whole variant and climbing the wall. It reminded me. So he climbs the ladder, does the rock thing, the opening the door, the thing with the staff. But really the image that did it for me was when it showed them like daytime inside the Ren Fair sort of surround inside, and the wall is around, and they just in the absolute, like right in front of your face in the foreground of the camera shot is just the hand reaching up.
The hand,
like the wooden fence of the actual surround of the thing. That was really well done. Because you're like, oh, that's odd behavior.
But that and like you said earlier, the moment when that ghoul turns in the herd first, right?
Yeah.
Those two scenes, they were simple, but were they powerful?
And you know that this is a different walker, and it just gives you the
what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do?
Because there's no way to predict. We don't know what it's gonna do. It's great.
Yeah. And then I as a sound guy, I have to tip my cap to them too, that when Lydia and Aaron are sitting around the campfire and it's nighttime and they're on watch, and then they hear what sounds like a door kind of banging against the wall, and Aaron's like, it's just the wind, don't worry about it, and then like they keep hearing it and it starts getting more involved, and then she's like, that didn't sound like the wind. He's like, yeah, maybe we should do another sweep. And then they get up, and then of course the herd is coming in, right? They're like, holy crap.
Yeah. It's too late now. Run.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I saw someone say on Twitter as a response to that, they were like, it's horror movies. It's never the wind.
It's never the wind.
Something.
Yes.
Go investigate, because it's something.
Right. You definitely don't go skinny dipping, because that will not help. But
yeah, as soon as you're thinking about taking any part of your clothes off, it means that someone's coming to kill you.
Yes, exactly.
That's just, those are the rules. I didn't make the rules. The rules just exist. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
You got to follow the rules.
You do have to follow the rules. And speaking of following the rules, one of our rules that we follow is that we take a break.
We do.
Anything else?
I have one other point.
Anything else? Oh, geez, Louise. Yes.
I know. One other point, and that is, we talked about Greg Nicotero had mentioned at the Stephen King Film Festival here in Chicago a few weeks ago that we would be seeing the horror movie monster slasher guys appear as walkers throughout these 8 episodes, and we did get the Freddy Krueger in episode 17.
Yes, we did.
And in 18, I did not see any that jumped out at me.
No.
So if anyone else did, or if they mentioned it on Talking Dead, please let me know. But in this episode, in 19, the question I have is when Aaron rips off the variant's face.
Yep.
And then he stabs it, and then it basically, they do like a smash cut from dark to light, looking at the ghoul, right? And it's now daytime. When I was looking at that ghoul, the way its mouth was with its teeth and how its eyeballs were kind of popping out a little bit of his head, it reminded me a lot of Jason from Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood.
Okay.
Where there's in this one, Kane Hodder played him, and there's a scene where that's the one where Lara Parr Lincoln has telekinesis, and she like beats the crap out of Jason with her telekinesis powers, and like has cords come up and wrap around his neck, and gasoline cans spray him with gas, and I mean it's great. He gets beat up, but there's a point where she tightens up the straps on his hockey mask, and the plastic breaks and it comes off, and you see Jason's face. And that face, I thought, looked exactly or very similar to this one, the variant ghoul. And I'm wondering if any other folks out there made a similar conclusion there, because again, I have not been on the interwebs. I've not seen if anyone has been talking about this.
I haven't seen that discussed yet. So I don't know if other people saw or felt the same sort of thing you did.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just I haven't seen it yet, but that also means like maybe the people I'm following aren't the ones who would see something like that. I don't know.
Well, if any of
it's
our
definitely a possibility if you thought it looked like it.
Yeah, I think, if anyone's interested, just look up Friday the 13th Part 7, Jason Unmasked or something. I'm sure there's got to be a screen capture of it, and then look at that face and then look at the face of the variant and see it. Do you think it's similar? I was trying to figure out how could they put Jason or even like Michael Myers or someone into this, because you don't think they're going to be wearing a mask. I didn't. I mean, did you think that they would have like a ghoul with a hockey mask on?
I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. I thought maybe it would be something where it would give you the same feeling, and it's a ghoul you see from behind.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I didn't either.
I hadn't thought about it that far, but I guess that would be problematic.
Yeah. Well, again, and me neither. I mean, I thought, oh, that'll be cool, but then I was kind of like, how are they going to do that in a way that's not like really? So then when I saw this guy, I'm like, oh, okay, that can make sense. So that's why I saw it. But again, if anyone else has a similar thought, please let me know that I'm not completely crazy, that I'm just mostly crazy.
Mostly. Yeah, all right.
But anyway, that's all that I got. So.
All right. Well, that does kind of wrap it up then. Woo, baby, plenty to talk about. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and what's coming up on the podcast.
So stick around. We'll be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man on bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned
Toxic
over.
Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiences, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from DriveThruRPG.com or ToxicBag.com.
Hey there, Internet. Do you like scary movies? What about going way off the rails while discussing your favorites, like Nightmare on Elm Street?
Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look
Can you
fine.
see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay, Summer?
Tell us what you're seeing.
Friday the 13th. She's like, you're driving this whole thing, so it's like you're either gonna steer us to safety or you're gonna careen us all up to our death.
Either way, I'm
fine with it. I can see Summer doing a barrel roll out of a car now.
I know. Down a cliff, down some fields.
Halloween.
Exactly. Tom. And that mustache and that butt.
Oh my god.
And more. Trust me when I say that there's no movie that we can't derail right off the cliff. So come check out the Dolls of Horror podcast with your hosts, Girl on Gore Jamie and Summer of Fear. And me, producer Jesse, as we tackle all the horror movies, both new and old, and hopefully give you a laugh or two along the way. The Dolls of Horror is available on all podcast streaming services, including Apple and Spotify. Visit thedollsofhorror.com for more information.
Hi, this is Tom Savini, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
All right, everybody, we are back and we're ready to jump right in. But, thanks for that little intro there, Mr. Tom Sweeney. Gotta love him.
He was pretty cool. I got to admit, he was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
He is Sex Machine, so.
Right. I don't know if you're aware, but he's the Sex Machine.
He is.
Have
He's
you
a
met
Sex
him before?
Machine. That's right.
He is Sex Machine.
That's
Okay.
right.
So that being said, oh man, we've got tons of feedback from people. Thanks so much for writing in, everybody. And obviously it's because we're talking about 2 different episodes, and it's great. But thanks everybody for writing in. We're gonna go ahead and jump right in when we're finished with the feedback. We got a little bit to chat about with what's going on the podcast. But Steve, why don't you get us started on the feedback that we've received?
Absolutely. We go to the international desk because we have some feedback from our pal Andy from Germany.
Andy.
Hello, Andy. So glad that you got back to us and you're still on the show. That's awesome. And we should point out that he did submit this feedback for Lockdown, and it came in like right after we finished recording the podcast for Lockdown, and then we were off for basically 13 days. So it's not that we were ignoring you. It's just this is the first chance we've had a chance to bring it up. But we're super excited that you're still out there and you're still engaged in the show and you're still listening to us. That's so cool. So
yeah, we agree with all of that.
And he sent this via email because that's how he does it. And he says, "Hi Diana and Steve. Yahoo! The second best post-apocalypse TV series currently is back. The scene which intrigued me the most was the crowd chanting, 'We want Sebastian, we want Sebastian.' In the German sync, they pronounce his name like in English, and it did sound like, 'We want to eat, we want to eat.'" Because that made me pay attention. Food riots in the Commonwealth? What's going on? Oh, Pamela looks almost in panic. All the food must be gone. Why is Connie grinning like a cat that stole the fish? Are our people behind this? Are they trying to overthrow Pamela? What an evil plan. Show me more.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I love it.
It's interesting that C, and he uses quotations, is also in the final season now, and I can compare these two. C became really, really bad. Fear the Walking Dead level of bad, yet it's enough to make me curious that the group leader says, "We're in a hurry, let's take a shortcut through this unknown area." It were only lame cannibals in the end, but 7-foot size Jason Momoa fighting the 8-foot size cannibal leader was still more interesting than Daryl shooting clueless stormtroopers. If the armor is not bulletproof and not walker-proof, why the heck are you wearing this, guys? And that's the argument I've had for the stormtroopers in Star Wars, because they don't stop laser blasts, so why are you wearing it? I don't know. Good point. He then goes on to say, Tales of the Walking Dead became uninteresting. Pamela's problems with her son are boring, and the people of the Commonwealth are boring, and little Sebastian is mean to them. Oh, no. And then he finishes it off by saying, "But I don't want to rant. I didn't watch the last episode of Tales, so I'm glad to hear you guys again. I actually forgot about Oceanside before you mentioned it. Before you mentioned Luke." And he goes, "By the way, is Virgil dead? I can't remember."
We can't remember either.
Yeah. Well, and again, the last time we saw him, no, but we haven't seen him for a long time. So, yeah, maybe. We don't know. So, anyway, he wraps it up by saying, "Till next episode, Andy from Germany." So, amazing feedback as always, Andy. Thank you so much for writing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Andy. I'm glad that we were able to get to it. It was a little late, but I'm glad we were able to make sure that your thoughts were included on the podcast. So thanks for sending them in. Next up, we've got some feedback for episode 18 for New Deal, and this came from our number one listener, Alex Baelish. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Alex.
Alex sent us some feedback via the emails. And he said, "Diane and Steve, we started with Founders Day, and now it came full circle in this episode. This last trimester has been so packed with good stuff. I've been sad and happy to see the show ending on such a high note. The Commonwealth seems like it's Woodbury 2.1. Interesting.
Okay. All right.
These openings are such tearjerkers, but I love how they're giving the watchers of the show the much needed fan service we needed to see how far this show has come. Judith is the future of this world. She's a young lady who sees both sides and can handle herself in both. When she took the Python, how cool was that? Side note, come on, there's no way that gun didn't have a great kickback.
Yeah, that's true.
And she's a small person. But anyway, that aside, he continues and says, as always, once they get good news, all hell breaks loose. Sebastian, although, was amazing to watch, and that has set the table for the rest of the episodes with the Commonwealth. Eugene is a marked man for only bringing out the truth. I think Carol had the best lines of the whole show. We find love where we can and don't apologize for it. Profound words coming from where she came from, which is true. She's had quite the journey. Mm-hmm. He continues to say, as useful as Hornsby is, he's going to get outwitted by Pamela, I think, or maybe even our group. It was a great move to have his people kill the workers and make the zombies roam inside the walls. Did you notice the zombies have changed faster than like Z Nation? So I think he means to like
turn into zombie. Yeah.
That was interesting. P.S. I was so worried you would have to end the podcast since the main show would be over. I see all the things coming up, and it looks so exciting to see what might happen, and also to hear your thoughts.
Aww.
And yeah, we do intend, I may not be super excited for some of these spinoffs, but we're covering them because this is an all Walking Dead universe podcast.
That's right.
I may not like the idea of Daryl being by, the Eiffel Tower, but I'm going to cover it.
Hey, absolutely. There's no shirking going on here. I want you to know that. We are shirk free.
Yeah, I mean, if we're covering Fear, we definitely have to cover these.
Oh, God, yeah. Just to have something good to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks again for writing in, Alex. We always love hearing from you.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing feedback. Thanks so much, man. All right, moving along. Our next bit came from our pal Amelia from Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique. Hello, Amelia. And this also came via the email, and she said, decided to watch it, and this is also for episode 18. And she goes, decided to watch it a second time before writing this because it was so good, and so good was all in caps. And because I wanted to hunt for a special horror walker, which I didn't spot. Yeah, me neither. Loving the flashback intros, loving the F-bombs, loving the tension, loving wondering when the body count is going to start. Still wish a little that I didn't know there would be spin-off shows so plot armor wouldn't be a thing. But still, and still is all in caps. The characters are unsure but determined, and that's when they're at their best. Every time I watch Hornsby tell Pamela he's made something of himself, I laugh and go, I'm kind of a big deal. Eugene and Max are so adorable it hurts to think something awful is going to happen to them, because of course it will. They're happy, talking about the future. Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah,
right.
Definitely something's happening.
All you need, again, Eugene has to start writing in a journal, and then it's over, right? And then she goes on to say, and watching the collapse of that awful Milton kid was almost too delicious. I'm going to miss this show so much when it's over. Wah. And that is from Amelia. So, yeah, again, great points. I agree. And sadly, yep, Eugene and Max, probably not going to make it.
I mean, the track record for, happy people, it's not good.
It's not good. It's not good, people.
It's not that we're trying to poo-poo. We want happy people. Be happy. Do happy things.
That's right. Find happiness where you can.
Yeah, because it's not going to be on this show. Because that's, if you can find it, but it's not going to be on this show.
Right.
So just be prepared.
If you want a happy apocalypse, you got to watch Fear.
Yeah. That's and I don't know how happy that was. I mean, they were able to keep it together amidst the nuclear hellscape.
Oh, yeah.
So.
They had no problems with electricity and fuel and guns and clothing and boots and water. And they had everything. It was the greatest apocalypse ever. It was a fully catered apocalypse.
No.
Anyway.
They're so lucky. All right, so next up, we got a piece of feedback from our pal Karen Cohen. Karen actually I was gonna split them, but then I was like, who cares? She sent in 2 different sets of feedback in one sort of contained thing. So she sent us feedback about 18 and feedback about 19. So I'm gonna do it all together. And but thanks for separating out your thoughts. I appreciate that, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
So Karen sent us her thoughts via the Facebooks, and she put, definitely missed the pod last week. Aww.
That's
and was
nice.
stuck listening to the other 5 Walking Dead podcasts I listened to. Is that a red flag? And I'm like, I don't know. I listened to a few too. Hush.
No, it's perfectly understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you listen to 5 other podcasts? I do. So she says, I'll separate my thoughts if that's how you're going to run through it. Well, yeah, I mushed yours together, and that's just the way it's going to be. So for episode 18, A New Deal, these were her thoughts. She says, it must be apple season in the Commonwealth. Yeah, there was a lot of apple motif happening in that episode.
There was. Yep.
She says, RJ is the most boring character. It's too bad he didn't have a touching talk with anyone, so they probably won't kill him. She says, I guess you can't get more American than a wrestling match. And Daryl's blank face the entire match was great. I loved it. Goodbye, Sebastian. Love that the walker bit into your neck like a vampire. Ooh,
yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good catch there. And then she says about the most recent episode for Variant, episode 19. She says, super loved this episode. And Princess is back. She's also effing amazing. She loved Rosita's interview with Mercer, obviously.
Yep.
Awesome. I agree with this point. It was definitely a nitpick, and I was like, I'll give him that.
Yeah, I did too.
They didn't check the church or follow Rosita to the church.
Yeah. I thought that was a little weird that they weren't following all of the, Alexandria people. Like Daryl and Rosita go to the church like repeatedly. It's like, really? No one is keeping an eye on these people? Because, who else does Eugene know?
Yeah, and it doesn't make them very, good investigators. They're not investigating very well.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. She continues to say, Jerry seriously has a can of beans. And it actually, if you think about it, I didn't think of it at the time until she pointed it out, but the can is in like relatively good shape.
Sure.
So it's not like rusty or gross because it's been around for, 10 years.
10 years, yeah. I'm not surprised that cans of beans still exist. You just can't eat them because they've gone, you'll get botulism and die because they've clearly, gone past their expiration date, right? I mean,
yeah, by a decade or so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so she continues to say, and I'm right there with you on the can. I didn't think of it until you pointed it out, but I completely agree. She continues to say, I feel like everyone has had their talks and hugs, so maybe things will start to kick off. I think she means the dead people.
The dying and the killing and whatnot?
Yeah, the dying and the stuff. Here's hoping. She says, the weird thing between Pamela and Lance is cringe. Yes!
Yes, and more yes.
Oh, it was like ultimate cringe. It was like super cringe. It was like cringe with a capital C. It was like, I don't know, use a different font and make it stand out. It was cringe. Oh my God.
It was. Yeah, it was creepy.
But then she made a really good point. She said, damn, Pamela, at least flip the coin.
Yeah.
I know she did the thing, but it would have been a little extra if she'd done the flip too, because that's what he does. And that was sort of a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, but the way that they resolved it, I think Pamela wasn't going to kill him there. She'll kill him, but not there. You know what I mean? So flipping the coin, there's an element of chance there that, he could lose the coin flip and then, now I do have to, you know what I mean? So I think she did the, put the coin behind your back and pick a hand. And she basically, she didn't say find the coin. She said pick one.
Yeah.
Right. And so she kind of hedged.
Say, oh, it doesn't have the coin. You live.
Yeah, right. So she kind of hedged her bets a little, but you're right. It would have been certainly poetic and karmic justice if she flipped the coin and it comes up, tails or whatever is the I get to kill you now result.
That would have been great.
Based on all of the times he's flipped a coin, in his lifetime and done the same thing. So, yeah, good observation, man.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And she rounded out her email with the best sign-off ever. She says, "Thanks, guys. You always make me laugh." Oh, the flattery. I
know. So, stop. Go on.
Go on. Give me more. And she signs off saying, "Karen, I'm not related to Lauren Cohan Cohen."
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, thanks again for writing in, Karen. Love your thoughts. Love your feedback. Love your sign-off. Love everything.
And Karen, even though you're not related to Lauren, we still love you. So.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So, all right, moving on.
All right, moving on. And now this is all episode 19, so this is variant. And our first piece of feedback comes again from Amelia from Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique. So we get to hear her thoughts on this one too, which is awesome. And this also came via the emails. And she says, the good thing about how the AMC Plus app screwed up and didn't get this one out as early as it normally would be was how I got to see other people on social media upset about it. It was a nice change from the obnoxious, "Is this show still on?" crap I still see out there. If they stopped watching The Walking Dead, it's their loss, I say. And I concur. She goes on to say then, "I know you're doubling up on this episode, so I'll keep it short. Gah! Eugene, my angel." And that's all in caps. She goes, "I don't want anything bad to happen to him or to Max. And I kind of hope that the doom and gloom they're setting up is a red herring that actually means everything will turn out fine." I don't know. Maybe. I guess we'll find out soon. Yeah, mostly. Anyway, she goes, "And Princess. I love her so much. She deserved that F-bomb in this episode with that epic monologue." And I agree. That scene was freaking awesome. And way to go, Paolo. She nailed that scene.
Oh, for sure.
And she goes, "She had two excellent ones this time around to make up for how we ain't seen her in a bit. And she just keeps reminding me how I knew I loved her the moment I first saw her. And I find new reasons to identify with her every time she opens her mouth."
Yes.
I agree. She is awesome.
Agreed.
Definitely amazeballs acting going on here.
Mm-hmm.
She goes on to say, "I want her to be happy, and I hope she gets to be happy with Mercer because he's a damn good guy and they are too cute." And then she finishes it up by saying, "Man, the end is freaking nigh. Who else is up for some King Jerry? Long live the king." And I agree. I want to see King Jerry and Queen Nabila. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. I don't know. Feels like so much happiness, so much contentment.
It can't end well, right?
It's not good. It's not good, people. We know, they know.
I know. Everybody knows.
We know. So
we pretend that they don't know that we know, but they know. Yeah, I know.
They know we know, and we know that they know we know. Anyway.
Amelia, thank you again.
Basically, we know.
Yeah.
Yes, Amelia, thanks for writing in twice. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
I just want to shout out too that when Amelia sent in her emails, she, for the one for episode 18, she put episode 2 in the title heading. And then in the next email, she sent episode 3 or 19 or whatever the hell they're calling it. Because it totally feels like we're at the beginning of season 12. Like we're in episode 3 of season 12, not episode 19, which has never happened before. So yeah, I'm right there with you. So all right, so let's move on. Next up, we've got some feedback we received via the Facebook from our pal Barbie Allen. Hey Barbie.
Hey Barbie, how are you?
Good. Thanks for writing in. We appreciate that. And she writes, "Walkers are scary again." They were. She says, "I was sure this was Jerry's swan song. I'm glad it wasn't. I love how they assumed it was the Whispers until Aaron ripped off the, air quotes, mask, only to reveal that it was a walker. This storyline was the highlight of the episode for me. I will say, though, that the Commonwealth storyline got 100 times more interesting with zombies and Pamela Milton showing her evil side. Hornsby stuck with a zombified, hungry Sebastian is just perfect. Mwah, chef's kiss. I guess it's the only way Sebastian could do something even remotely useful," with the cry laugh emoji. Final thought, they're really dragging out what happened to Oceanside, huh? And then there's like the eye roll sort of emoji. Yeah, the word on the street is that they're just really not covering the Oceanside stuff, and I don't know if that means anything or if they're just not covering it to not cover it. I have no idea, but
well, they're just setting up. There's going to be a new series they're going to announce soon. It's going to be called Luke from Oceanside. And yeah, it will explain all, and it will give us more Oceanside content than we would ever have dreamed or even wanted. So
yeah, I don't even know that I wanted any more Oceanside content, but we might be getting it. Who knows? One of these days, eventually.
Maybe, if we're lucky.
All right. Thanks again for writing in, Barbie. We always appreciate hearing from you.
Yes, and again, it's great, and yeah, you're right. Hornsby stuck with the zombified hungry Sebastian is short of Sebastian getting to eat him. That was a perfect way to resolve that for right now. So I agree, that was awesome. So thanks so much. All right, our final piece of feedback comes via the Facebook, and this is from our pal Bev2. So I believe this is across the pond, yes?
It is another entry from the international desk.
Ooh, the international desk. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And Bev starts out by saying, really enjoyed this episode. It didn't hang around, and it propelled the plot forward. As much as I love the variants and even feared for some characters' fates, I did feel that this was shoehorned into the storyline. I'm sure that it will link to one of the spin-offs, and that's why we're seeing it so late in the game. Yeah, I think you're right. Could be.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
You know, as you said, Diana, you know, the Daryl in Paris thing seems to be the obvious choice for where we'll see those. But yeah, I think you're right. Maybe the Dead Island or whatever the Negan one's called now, maybe that one will have them. Who knows? But I think you're right, Bev. I think you're right. And she goes on to say, back in the Commonwealth, the scene between Princess and Mercer was really well done. But it was the goodbye between Eugene and Rosita that brought on the emotions. I think this scene felt like the first of many final goodbyes that we'll be saying to our favorite characters. And yes, that's some of my major points. The Princess Mercer scene was unbelievably awesome, and the Rosita Eugene scene too. Again, and you're right. Could be the final goodbye for some of these people, right?
Could be, yeah.
So yeah, I think we got to get the Kleenex ready. If you're not cold and dead inside like myself, and when these things happen, because I think you're right. I think it might start happening. But Bev, thanks for writing in. Really appreciate it, and some really good points.
Yeah, good to hear from you. That's wonderful. So what's coming up on the podcast? Nothing. We're not going to do anything next week.
We're done.
I'm just kidding. So next week is episode 20, or as Amelia will call it in her feedback, episode 4. And this episode title is What's Been Lost? And the description we've been given so far is Daryl and Carol search for their disappeared friends. Oh, and that's an important point. That moment at the end of episode 19 where Rosita goes back to her apartment after saying goodbye to Eugene, and some thugs come in and they take her captive.
They do.
Yeah.
And she it's actually like the next morning, and she thinks it's like Daryl and the rest of the group because they were supposed to leave.
Yeah.
And so she's like, hey, is everybody ready to go? And then she walks out, and those two heavies are there, those two torpedoes, and she kind of fights them for a little bit, but yeah, the last scene, one of them like puts a black bag over her face, so literally it's a black bag job. And yeah, and you're right, I think that we're going to see more of that based on what the sneak peek was.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so the sneak peek which played on Talking Dead, but I'm sure it's available elsewhere. It's a really great scene. Carol is, grabbing some supplies because they're hitting the road. They're going to go back to Alexandria, yada, yada. And she's at the bakery, and Ezekiel comes in, and she's chatting with him. And she sort of bends down to get something from a shelf, and she comes back up, and he's not there. And then all of a sudden, there's the same as with Rosita. There's two heavies, like 2 or 3 guys, I can't remember. And they are trying to grab at Carol. She does everything she can to get away, and it appears like for now, like she does. She puts a bunch of shit in between, like her and them, like racks and things like that, because she's inside the bakery again. And so she like knocks over racks to sort of slow them down and trip them up so that she can get away. And she does that like 2 or 3 times. And she does appear to sort of get out, but then it, smash cut, it stops. And then, so we don't know how that plays out, but that's our little teaser. So yes, you're correct. It looks like they're trying to take all of our crew, our Alexandrian Hilltop people, captive.
Yeah.
But since it says Daryl and Carol search for their disappeared friends, I'm thinking she gets out of that scene okay.
No, at least for part of the episode, right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe she gets captured later on. Nice little tidbit about the episode. We have had these last 2 episodes were first timers with The Walking Dead, but we've got a veteran of I think, can't remember if she's done one of the main series, but definitely on Fear. Next week's episode is directed by Aisha Tyler. And she has directed a couple episodes of Fear. I think she did do one of the main series, but I honestly can't remember off the top of my head.
I thought she just directed on Fear, but maybe.
Yeah. So she's obviously no stranger to the universe, because she has definitely directed on Fear. She also had that small role for that one episode on Fear as well, with the wrestling. And she is a super fan as well. So we know that she's going to treat the storyline with a lot of tenderness and care. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be very cool.
Yeah.
There was, in the time that we were sort of off and not recording, there was confirmation that all of the episodes are going to release a week early on AMC Plus, except for the finale. The last time we talked about this, they had only given us the information for the first 4 episodes, I believe, and we weren't sure how it was gonna end up for the finale. But now it's clear that they've made the decision. It will not be released early on the app. And as far as I know, it's not one of those like it's going to release right after midnight on Sunday. I think it will only release on the app at the same time that it would be on broadcast TV.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, so that's the way it looks to me, is on that sort of schedule they sent out. It says available on AMC Plus at 8 p.m. Central. So I'm wondering if we'll record on Monday or we'll record on Tuesday. We're gonna have to talk about that.
Well, yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
It's also the exact same. The finale is the same weekend as Days of the Dead here in Chicago. So whether we can sort of make that thing and we can watch the episode together, we'll have to talk about that offline. But yeah, that final episode, I know people have been sort of stressing, since the episodes have been released early on AMC Plus for like at least a season or 2 now at this point, plus with Fear and everything. So I think everyone's breathing a sigh of relief that there won't be spoilers for the finale. I'm sure there will be some.
Oh yeah.
Someone's got a screener. The reviewers have screeners and things like that. So there's gonna be some spoilers out there, but I think this is gonna really tamp down on the level of spoilers you'll see out there. So
let's hope so.
Yeah, because I just do not want to be spoiled. It's difficult because it's like I hadn't even watched episode 19, and I opened up Twitter and the episode 20 was already out yesterday during the day.
Yep.
Yesterday. I'm sorry. Sunday, like before the episode had even aired. Episode 20 was already out and people were talking about some of the stuff, and I saw it on Twitter. So not major spoilers for me, but some stuff a little bit. I know, and I should know better. I'm usually careful to not, because I try not to follow any Walking Dead accounts on my personal Twitter. Mm-hmm. And when I'm afraid of spoilers, I stay on my personal and stay away from the podcast one. And I think I was just still logged in from putting out like one of my like pictures to like look for feedback, and I just went in there and I was like, oh, episode 20. Oh, well, shit.
Huh.
Now
so
I know
that's how Carol dies. Huh.
Yeah, now I know. So anyway, So I'm excited for that. I know it always puts a little wrench in the works for the actual recording, so we might have to record like a day late or so, just because of the logistics of watching the episode.
Wow, and we
We'll have
might
to go
need
back
a day just for the emotional, recovery period.
It's true. It's absolutely true. So yeah, so that's what we know. And if we end up recording it any differently or something, we will of course let you know. But we're excited to have no spoilers for the finale, much like everybody else, I'm sure. Yeah, so we talked last episode about how we're gonna go see Dawn of the Dead. That is Halloween weekend. Check your local listings. It's going to be playing, and as far as I know, it's been expanding into more theaters because there's a lot of demand for it. So Dawn of the Dead 3D is going to be Halloween weekend. There are shows Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and on Halloween itself. So check your local listings and see.
The last time I checked, the screening in our theater that we're going to has sold 28 tickets so far.
Not a lot of Dawn of the Dead people that are excited about it in Chicago, but maybe near you.
But we're going early. We're going to like the 7:00 showing, and I have a feeling that Dawn of the Dead fans are more of the midnight movie crowd, and so.
I'm too old for that shit.
Yeah. Well, you got too far to drive and all that stuff.
That's true.
So yeah,
it's a lot of logical things about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we mentioned it before, but it's coming up quick, Halloween weekend. So check your local listings. It's playing at Regal Cinemas, and see if you can find one near you. We totally recommend. 10 out of 10 stars. So want to sort of wrap up with our information for the week with Steve. You went on a little journey over the weekend.
Yeah, I did, and we're already almost 2.5 hours, so I think if it's okay with you, we can cover it in more detail next week.
Okay. Why don't we tease it for our folks so
sure.
They'll know what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, basically, if you're longtime listeners will remember that back in June of this year, you and myself and one of our friends, Jody, went on an airplane to Pittsburgh to Monroeville, Pennsylvania, which is where the mall is, where they filmed the original Dawn of the Dead, for this big show called Living Dead Weekend. And it was great. We had a wonderful time. We met Greg Nicotero, we met Tom Savini, we met Patty, right? And a whole bunch of other wonderful people. It was a great weekend. We had a great time. We met Larry. He took us on the tours of the mall. It was great. I mean, all that was wonderful. Well, they also do another show in the fall, usually in October, in Evans City. And Evans City is where George Romero filmed a lot of Night of the Living Dead. It's where the farmhouse was located. The farmhouse no longer exists, but where it was is right in that area. The cemetery is in that area, and then all of the location stuff with the posse and the sheriff and all that is all right there. And so they have a show there that's mostly dedicated to Night of the Living Dead, not so much Dawn or the other movies. And this year, it was last weekend, and I decided that I wanted to go because there were 4 actors from the original Night of the Living Dead that were going to be there, and I really thought, if I don't go, what are the chances I would get to meet them next time around, because you have to think that they're all in their 70s or 80s, and so it's like, how many shows do they have left in them, right, that they want to go to or would be able to go to? So anyway, I went, and I've got tons of stories. It was an incredible show. I was a little bit sad that it was very sparsely attended. There were not a lot of guests. So I was sad a little bit for the organizers, for the people running it, because they weren't necessarily going to make a profit or turn enough money. But as a fan, I loved it because, man, unfettered access to the guests and no lines for anything, and that made it, as a fan, fantastic, amazing. So, more details next week when we can talk a little bit more, because I definitely have a few stories. So yeah.
I I can't wait. I've gotten some tiny little tidbits, but I'm looking forward to you being able to share more with the listeners, and that's cool. We'll do it next week when we have a little bit more time on our hands. Because, oh my God, look
2.5
at the amount of time. Woo,
I know.
A 2.5. We told you it would be.
It'd be a long one. We did, and let me just close by saying that I won't give out any details, but some things are in motion, and if they work out like we have our fingers crossed to, that they will. It is possible that coming up here in the near future at some point, we might get another celebrity interview with a zombie related actor. So I made a few inquiries and I had some positive results, and we're just trying to kind of work things out. But I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to, but fingers are crossed. So.
Stay tuned for more information possibly in the future.
Yes, absolutely. As soon as we know, you will know.
Yeah, when we know, you'll know, and then we'll all know, and that'll be great.
Know.
All right, so now that we have hit that 2.5 hour mark, I think it's time that we just need to shut down and go to bed.
Oh my God, we got to shut the hell up here.
Yes, I know. Stop talking, Diana. All right, so thanks again for coming along, folks, and listening to us this week. Sorry for the longish episode. Had to cover the 2 shows. Had to make sure we're talking about it. If it was any other series, we probably would have just, talked a little bit. But obviously, this is the mothership. We got to make sure that we give each episode its due. But we're looking forward to discussing more of this final season when we talk again next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
All right, so are we good?
Let's do it.
All right, so actually, I'm going to make a note because I'm always like I always have so much B-roll. That's always we're really chatty, and then I'm like trying to figure out where we started. So at about 14 and a half minutes in is where we started. And that's just from where I recorded. We've actually been on the call for 22.